Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the ColdFusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome to another Modernize or Die CFML News Edition. It's October 22nd, 2019, and I am Gavin Peckin, a software consultant for Ortus Solutions. And who do we have over there?
Over here we have Brad Wood, random dude, also from Ortus Solutions. How you doing, Gavin?
Pretty good. So let's get into the news, and then we'll get to a recap of CF Camp, which you just came back from. So first up, though, we have a security release for CF Wheels. So 2.0.2 just released in October 17th. So I guess it's something they strongly recommend that you update if you're running 2.0.0 or 2.0.1. It does not affect 1.x releases, but it does have a potentially breaking change. So, make sure you test this thoroughly before deploying your application. And they actually put a shout out to, Brian Weller for bringing that to their attention. So, good to see that, community working together, and yeah, nice to see another release for CF Wheels too.
Excellent. Got the link there in the chat as well.
Very cool. Now, I don't know if you saw this or not, but Charlie started up the online meetup for the ColdFusion user group. So
I did see that. In fact, I was speaking with Charlie about it at CF Camp. He was over there hanging out in Germany. He said he's trying to get some new content. So I spoke with Charlie about several things that I might present on if I can find the time. Looks like there's some stuff coming up with Pete, though, which looks kind of cool.
Yep. So on Thursday, Pete's going to be doing a session on approaches to more secure ColdFusion code. And for those you don't know, Pete Freitag, he's awesome. He's like the security guru for ColdFusion. He has a lot of great products. Ninja. Oh, even better. Yeah. But so he's got a lot of good products out there too. HackMyCF is probably his most well-known product, but he also has the CF docs, and he has CFScript.me. So if you want to change your tags to CFScript, that'll help you with that. A lot of great stuff, but he always scares the pants off everybody at every conference he goes to, because he shows you just how insecure your code can be, and it gives you the easy ways to get your code more secure. So it's a pretty cool session, and it's available on meetup.com with a ColdFusion meetup, and we have links here in the show notes, and Brad is going to post them into the YouTube channel as we go live here as well.
There's the sign up there for Pete's session.
Yep, and then Charlie, like I said, he is looking for a new speaker, so you can reach out to Charlie if you'd like to speak, and he actually has a blog post on careheart.org about, some frequently asked questions about wanting to be a speaker on here, and, he's always looking for more contributors, and that's the reason why it actually had a little bit of a hiatus, shall we say, for a while, because we had a lot of speakers every week for years, and then basically got to the point where everyone just got busy, and I think the online thing just got a little quiet, and so he just didn't push it as much. But conference season is just sort of finishing now, so it's a good opportunity for some of those speakers to get out there and actually put that online. That way there's share it with people that weren't able to make the conferences. So pretty cool.
Yes, if you presented it at CF Summit in Vegas or CF Camp in India. I'm confusing the other CF Summit in India, the CF Camp in Germany. Charlie would love to have your talks on the online meetup. It can get out to a lot broader audience than just who was in attendance. And it doesn't have to be a super. I've talked to Charlie about this. It doesn't have to be a super structured talk. With slides and all polished. It can just be, 20, 30 minutes on something that's really cool you've been working on that you think would be helpful to people. Charlie's very open about what kind of content will be useful on a CF online meetup. So definitely reach out to him if you're interested in it.
Very cool. Yep. Okay. So we also, obviously you've been at CF Camp. So
hi, Michaela Light.
I have been at CF Camp.
So
and
I'd like to find out a little more about what you did there. Obviously you had your pre-training conference and then the conference itself. So you want to give us an overview of what we all missed out on,
Bavarian pretzels and coffee. That is what I did there, and that is what you missed out on, among other things.
Among other things.
Yeah. I can't believe it's my kids are already winding up with their Halloween costumes, because it kind of feels like it's still the beginning of the month. It was, the end of September when I left for Vegas for CF Summit, and then it was just, home for a few days and then turned around and went to Germany. Of course, I managed to sneak in London and Paris and some castles along the way. But yeah, CF Camp was a huge success. There was a ton of tweets using the hashtag CF Camp hashtag, to be redundant and repetitive. So if you go to Twitter and just search on that hashtag, you can find a lot of the stuff that happened. All of the slide decks for my talks were posted, and a lot of other presenters posted there as well. But we had a ton of fun at CF Camp. We had the 2-day trainings that Ortus did. Eric was there doing the test box. I was there doing the cold box hero superhero. And then there were preside trainings and some other stuff going on ahead of time. And the biggest attendance, I believe, ever, I think Mishi was telling me.
Nice.
They were at the conference. Yeah. And the speakers were great. A lot of first-time speakers, but the content was all top-notch. There was one of the attendees came with a dog. They were just walking around in all the sessions. That was awesome. Kind of became like the little mascot of the conference. Little dog hanging out with everybody.
Yeah, I heard about that ahead of time, and everyone was pretty excited to hear that. They didn't care about the speakers so much, but that dog, man, that was a big hit.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So we had Lucy keynote one day talking about Lucy 6, even do a bunch of live demos of stuff that's going into like stuff that's already done in Lucy 6. We had Adobe doing their keynote the second day, covering a lot of their customer highlights and some of their stuff for 2020. So the keynotes were pretty cool. And of course, had lots of sessions. I did my talk on design patterns, and then a talk on CF config when I was there. But a lot of activity. They have like food out all the time. You're just constantly eating at CF Camp, and it's really good food. They have like that really nice coffee machines where you push a button. It grinds the beans and pulls a shot of espresso and froths milk, and it's all like happens in 30 seconds. And so I would just hit those things like all day long because they were free. They had pretzels and sandwiches. So it's a great conference center in Freising, and the hotel has a really good bar and restaurant like right there in it. So it's kind of nice. You can hang out with everybody and talk, at night, and you don't really have to travel too far to get to stuff. So I came back with a suitcase full of chocolates, among other things, from CF
I like
Camp.
my chocolate, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other big highlights. They had a couple really cool sponsors. I like how CF Camp, and this is unique to them, they really reach outside of the ColdFusion space, and they pull sponsors in that are just kind of generic tech stuff. They had a sponsor there called like Tuxedo Computers or something.
Oh, I heard about
anyway,
that.
It's a company that sells like Linux-based laptops to order. They're really like high quality stuff. It's a German company. They were there with tons of swag. In fact, Kai Koenig even gave a presentation on using Linux as a development machine, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And had another company whose name I forgot, but they sell like Raspberry Pi style like robots and things designed for like classrooms, little circuit boards you can plug together to make electronic circuits and stuff. They have like little 3D printer pens. And that's pretty cool stuff. They have fun swag, and they have a lot of cool products that are interesting to a technical group.
Yeah,
but,
so it's complementary to the language without being stuck in the language.
The companies themselves had nothing to do with ColdFusion. It was just, really cool, interesting stuff that they covered. So those are some of the sponsors there. Of course, Content CMS was there. Preside CMS was there. Ortus had our booth. Adobe had a booth. Lucy had a booth. So they packed a lot into there. But I'm still pretty buzzed from CF Camp. It was a lot of fun, and I'm still slightly jet lagged because I just got home late Saturday night. So
cool. Well, I do want to ask you about like the Codemasters. I know that last year they had one that was pretty fun. So how'd that go? Because it's always a big hit.
Yeah. So the Codemasters is Mark Drew, and who is it? Was it Rob
Dudley? Yeah.
That basically did an after party event. Where it's kind of like a game show kind of setup. They had who was it? They had the Spice Boys, which was Matt Gifford and Hoost, and then on the other side they had Team America, whatever they called themselves. That it was Nolan Irk and Charlie Earhart, and so they all had little buzzers that made different sounds, and they had a bunch of different just goofy games like trivia about HTTP status codes. like the 418, I'm a little teapot status code or whatever it is. They had a trivia where they had like a pixelated picture of a presenter or a famous person, and it would like slowly get less pixelated, and whoever could buzz in and guess who the image was first would win.
Okay, cool.
And the most fun thing about it is that the scoring is completely and totally arbitrary. So Mark and Rob would basically just add and subtract points as they saw fit. However, the Team America sort of faltered a bit, and they got kind of walked all over by Matt and Hoos. So it was still a really good time.
Cool. Well, let me ask a couple of questions because I saw a bunch of tweets fly out about the Lucy feature. So I think Lucy 5.4, the big one I saw about that was that they're going to be compatible with the latest Adobe releases.
Yeah, and that was more just mentioned in passing. I think I actually tweeted about that. But yeah, they're saying the 5.4 will hopefully include compatibility for Adobe 2018. Ironically, it was said very generically, like they didn't want to mention the word Adobe ColdFusion. But I mean, we all know what quote other CF engines unquote means. But yeah, but there's a whole ticket of 2018 things, mostly new functions and things. They're looking to target with a 5.4. They spent most of their time on Lucy 6. For the Lucy keynote, Alex Skinner got up and basically said, hey, become members, give us money. It'll make things get done faster. And then Gert got up and talked about just Lucy 6 overview kind of stuff. And then Misha got up and basically kind of did a bunch of like code demos. So they're talking about bringing, looking at some of the other tweets you have in there, talking about introducing like a CFS extension, which would be kind of like a CFM, but you wouldn't have to put CF script tags in it. It would just be script by default.
Okay.
That's kind of cool. I don't personally think I'd ever use it because I already just put script in my CFCs, and usually I only use CFMs for views, in which case I actually want tags.
Yeah.
But still, for some people, I think they use a lot of CFMs and they want to be able to just put pure business logic in it. What was much more interesting was the ability in Lucy 6 to write a function, like a UDF, right alongside your CFML code, but you basically tag it as being a Java function, and you just write pure Java code inside of it. And I'm not talking about like create object Java. I mean just like actual Java code you'd pass to a Java compiler. And then at runtime, Lucy just compiles that directly into a native Java function. So if you have some like really low level stuff you just want to do directly in Java and performance is absolutely paramount, instead of having to write a separate Java file, have a separate build process that compiles that down to a jar or class file, having class loading that, you can just write a pure Java function right there alongside your CFML, and a Lucy compiler will just compile it right alongside the rest of your code.
That's cool. Doesn't you just have to do function type equals Java, right? And that's all you need.
Yeah, I talked to Misha about the type. I don't like the word type. I think it's too generic. I suggested maybe they make it language or something. But yeah, in his examples, it was type equals. They also had some really interesting stuff that I don't know if I'd personally use it, but I can see the use cases. Right now, you can do script and tags, obviously, with the CF script tag. But if you're in a script CFC and you're like, oh man, I really wish I could just put like a tag in the middle of this, there's no way to like do the opposite. So they talked about having a syntax where you have like 3 backticks, sort of like how you declare code blocks in Markdown.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you start and end a block with backticks, and then you just stick tags inside of it.
Yeah, for all those people who hate writing queries in script, that would be
exactly
the perfect example of use case.
You could have a DAO with a script CFC, and you could throw a CF query tag like right in the middle of it. Yeah. So that'll probably throw all the code highlighters for a loop.
I bet.
So they get updated. And then one of the other really cool things that Lucy talked about was having listeners for things like CF query or CF mail. So you can declare a function or a CFC that listens to like a before and after, kind of like AOP for tags. So before the CF query executes, you could access what the SQL statement's going to be and maybe modify it on the fly or change the incoming parameters. And then after the CF query executes, you could get access to the result and provide some kind of transformation on top of it. It would be sort of like seamless.
I saw Eric tweet something about this, saying that he kind of already does this type of thing with Quick and QB, so he's liking this native approach. So,
well, yeah, I had sent a tweet saying it'd be interesting to have like a preprocessor that you'd put a DSL inside of a CF query, and then it would like convert that to SQL. And Eric was like, "Yeah, you mean like QB?" That's exactly what he already does. I mean, there's probably a lot of use cases. They had some async stuff, where if you want to run a query and it's maybe just like a logging insert and you don't need to wait for it to complete, you can just stick like async equals true, I think it was, in the query tag, and it would be the equivalent of just wrapping it in a CF thread, fire and forget kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole bunch of Java interoperability, the ability to take like closures and pass them into a Java library that expects a Java Lambda and have it just convert that for you. Also, the need to use create dynamic proxy. From my understanding, unless I'm misunderstanding it, I believe that you really wouldn't need to use create dynamic proxy anymore, which, if you're not familiar with that, it allows you to take a CFC that implements a particular Java interface, and then the create dynamic proxy method will create like a Java class that is actually your CFC, but it looks like a Java CFC implementing an interface. With some additional metadata in your CFC, you can just do that just naturally without needing to use create dynamic proxy now. So you have a CFC, you have some sort of like Java implements equals, and you tell Lucy what Java interface that your CFC implements, and then you can just use that CFC instance directly as though we're an instance of a Java class implementing an interface. So I think they're just kind of trying to smooth over a lot of the rough edges using CFML alongside Java libraries. So
yeah, and it's a common use case. I mean, I know that Eric Peterson was messing with some GraphQL stuff as a proof of concept right before CF Summit, and he was having to deal with all that dynamic proxies. And when he saw this, he's like, "Oh, where was this 2 weeks ago?" So yeah, but it sounds like they're definitely attacking some common use cases that people run into, and listening to some of those things. And yeah, I mean, obviously, if you guys are using Lucy and not paying Adobe, I talked to a client yesterday, and they're talking about licensing fees for a couple of little things. I'm like, well, it's better than paying $10,000 for an Adobe license, right? So if you guys are using Lucy, think about contributing something back to it, and it helps move the language along, and put in those tickets when you find something that you don't like or isn't compatible, and let's all make Lucy a little better. So, but it sounds like they've got a lot of cool things on their roadmap. And do they give you an idea of when Lucy 6 will be coming out? Any ideas?
No, that's one thing that I didn't hear them touch at all. Unless they said it and I didn't hear it. Okay. I didn't hear any kind of deadline stuff for Lucy 6. So I think it's still pretty early in planning.
Okay. Cool. But so obviously a few people said that they missed seeing Luis at CF Camp, and he said he also missed it too. But he's planning on being there next year for sure. But I think this year, the anniversary with the wife won out, and that's why we're on that side of the world and he did the India training. But speaking of Luis, so I heard that his Bangalore India training was a big success. He had quite a few pictures in there with a group. They even made it over to the Adobe office and stuff. So he got to see Rakshif and some of the Adobe team, some of the ones that weren't at CF Camp. Because obviously, it's the same
Luis
time.
sent some cool pictures of the Adobe office there in Bangalore. So I'm a little jealous.
Yep,
I'm jelly.
But he said that it was a great class. It was bright, fun. They're all bright, fun, and talented developers. And he said he had a lot of fun. He's planning to go back and do that superhero API version, because obviously now they're all heroes after doing the 0 to hero training. So they'll have to go back. And they had a nice big group, and it sounded like he had a great time, and everybody enjoyed it. So pretty cool. So one more thing in our news. So if you guys haven't listened to the last couple of episodes, we've been talking about Hacktoberfest. So we mentioned a couple more times, you got another week and a bit to get your 4 pull requests into any GitHub repo, which is public. As long as you're not blacklisted as having an invalid pull request, you qualify to earn basically a free t-shirt from DigitalOcean and Dev.to, which is the 2 main sponsors behind Hacktoberfest this year. So, I know that you took a couple of pictures, actually. Some people were wearing them at the pre-conference at CF Camp.
Yeah, I saw a handful of the Hacktoberfest shirts floating around there, so that was pretty cool. I think Eric and Hoos both had one on.
Yep, I got one right here. I was going to wear it today, but you couldn't see it anyway, so.
Stand up from behind your desk, man.
So, yep, but Hacktoberfest basically is just a big open source initiative to really push open source, get people in there contributing to different projects around the place. It's for all background levels, skill, etc. And Andrew Davis last week mentioned that we should basically call it Doctoberfest, because the best way to get started with anything is just pull up some documentation and add to it. So ortusbooks.com, we've got a ton of books there. I'm sure you've read some of the documentation at some point for one of the things, even if it's command box, but they're all GitHub repos. So you can go in and make a pull request, and that can be one of your 4. And then if you get your 4 pull requests in and you sign up at Hacktoberfest.digitalocean.com, it'll track those for you automatically, and then they'll send you an email saying, hey, basically what size t-shirt, where do you live, and they'll send you out your t-shirt. So it's pretty cool. You get a few stickers too, and everyone loves stickers, right?
So if you bought a hard copy of the Modern CFML book in 100 minutes and you send a pull request to our Git repo, will your hard copy automatically update? Because that would be super sweet.
No, I wish, but
have real life WebSockets with a physical book in your hand, just like refreshes.
No, we'll send you out a post-it note, and you can just stick it over the top.
We'll give you a sticker that you can like put over it.
I've seen that in some books.
I've seen it on like packages to the grocery store. You know, the ingredients list, they changed, and they're like, never mind, use this thing.
Yeah, too funny. So, but yep, so Hacktoberfest is pretty good. If you guys haven't signed up yet, go sign up. You still got time. And it's just 4 simple pull requests, and CF Docs is a good place to do that. Pete Freitag has a blog post about how to be a helpful contributor. So go ahead and read that as well. But
yeah, we've gotten quite a few pulls that I've seen for some of the Ortus stuff. I've gotten a lot of documentation updates. I've even gotten some new, like, really good features added to CF config. Now, I don't know if everybody's doing it for Hacktoberfest. Some people might just be doing it just because they want to do it. But I hope they're signed up for Hacktoberfest, because I've seen a lot of pulls come through. Yep.
So, I mean, if you've done pull requests already and you sign up today, you might already be done. That's how, I mean, it keeps track of them during that time period, no matter when you sign up. So, and it takes a second. All you do is click your GitHub account, do the OAuth login or whatever, and away you go. So, quick and easy, and, free t-shirt. And then you can show them off at the next conference. Speaking of next conferences, so we've wrapped up quite a few, but there are still a couple left in this conference season. The big one being CF Summit India. So if you are in India or close to it, CF Summit India is actually complimentary, so it's free, which is kind of a cool thing. So for those of you that went to CF Summit in Vegas, it was pretty cheap. It was $99. They kept the early bird the whole time, but if you go to the India one, it is free. This one's just a 1 day, but it's pretty cool. It's set up for designers, developers, strategists. They got all the experts and the engineers. You probably get more engineers than they had at CF Summit, because that's where their main office is in there. And I think it's in Bangalore, if I'm pronouncing it right. So you guys can get to see the Adobe office there and get to hang out with everybody. So
that's in December, right?
Yep, December 7th. So you got a little bit of time to make some arrangements. Maybe get an early Christmas vacation and hit to India for some free training. But a free conference, can't say anything wrong about that.
Yeah, there's the link for the CF Summit India. Bangalore.
Cool. And then the next one on the conference list that I'm aware of, ColdFusion related anyway, is Into the Box 2020. So we've got the dates already. So it's May 6th to 8th in 2020. So you got about 6-7 months away. So we're already started working on planning. The call for speakers will be announced soon, probably later in November. We usually try and get the speakers all set up by the end of the year. So if you haven't spoken before, it's a good opportunity to try and make your stamp on the ColdFusion community and contribute.
Make your mark.
Yep. But don't be shy. Like you said, CF Camp had a lot of new speakers, and they produce good stuff. So, if you got an idea or something, and submit it. And if you need help, we can try and help you with the talk as well. Like I said, Charlie can even do a meetup, so you can actually present it, do a test one. If you got user groups in your area, those are good too for practice. Or even record yourself speaking on your computer and then watch it back later and make some, hints and tips so you can try and improve it. But yeah, we're always looking for new topics, and they don't have to be box related. So, common misconception, right, Brad? Into the Box is not just box products.
That's right. Anything relevant to ColdFusion developers, which could be Nginx or Docker, you name it.
Yep, and we always have a few people from other companies coming too, because Kevin Jones is from Nginx. He always comes and shows us the coolest stuff they've been doing. And we had people from Couchbase in the past talking about their caching stuff. So
And the guy from Portainer, he came all the way from Australia. What was his name?
No, from New Zealand, Neil.
Oh, New Zealand, Neil. Yeah.
He's a Kiwi. So, but so early bird tickets we'll probably have available later in the year. But put that on your calendar, May 6th to 8. Book that one. It's one of the good conferences before summer, and then after summer we usually have CF Camp, CF Summit, etc. So definitely,
There's also some talk about an Into the Box Latin America edition. So I don't know exactly where we're at on that, but let us know if that's something you're interested in. It would probably be in El Salvador if it were to happen. So.
Yep, I believe that's planned for early December as well. They're trying to get all the marketing materials out and running for that, so we should have dates very soon for that. But thanks for reminding me there, Brad. But I know that they're working on swag and getting the presenters ready. But I thought it was the first week in December. I thought December 5th for some reason, but we'll give you the information as we get it and get that out to you. So other than all the tweets and videos and blogs from CF Camp, there was a lot of other stuff too. So let's get into that. So first one, this one just happened this morning actually. So James Moberg from or at Games Over tweeted about the ColdFusion forums. So
that was a good one.
Yeah, so it looks like ColdFusion was listed number 5 on the front page of the Adobe community forums.
Yeah, and so it's sorted based on how many topics or conversations are in each forum.
Nice.
So basically, there's been more topics in the ColdFusion Adobe forum than there has been in the Photoshop one.
So above Photoshop and below Acrobat and Flash Player.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. Below Flash.
When the new forums came out, I didn't even think ColdFusion was on the front page. Nope. And you had to click on
print.
What was it? Yeah, print and publishing or something to find it, and everybody was like, "What?" And so now they've kind of just sorted them based on the most active ones. And the ColdFusion forum is one of the more active ones that Adobe has, which is pretty cool. So.
Yeah, I know that we several people talked to the Adobe team at CF Summit, and they said they were going to make some changes. And I believe before we left CF Summit, we were on the home page somewhere. And then obviously this change here means we moved up the list even more. So
yeah, and James just tweeted that today. But Sarav actually said it's been that way for about a month now. So they actually made that change quite a while ago. He just put that on Twitter about 10 minutes ago.
Okay, cool. So there you go. This is news is so fresh it wasn't even on our list.
I know. We're live podcasting Twitter as it streams.
Oh, that'll be fun. There's probably a Twitch for that.
There should be a 24/7 podcast where people just sit and just read Twitter streams.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah.
Audible Twitter.
Too busy to read your own Twitter. We'll read it to you. It's probably a market for that. We also had a blog from Fusion Reactor talking about requests from the Adobe Performance Monitoring Toolset that are showing up in Fusion Reactor. So a lot of people were seeing these weird requests. They weren't sure what they were. They found out they were basically the Performance Monitoring Toolset, the health check. So it's not a big deal. It's not going to impact your performance or anything. But with Fusion Reactor, you see the last so many transactions or whatnot. So if your health check is too frequent, it was basically pushing away all the other stuff you actually wanted to monitor. So the blog post gives you some tips on how to get in there and make some adjustments. Maybe adjusting your health check time would be one of the big things to look at. But
So I can see both sides of that, because I can see people being like, I just want to completely filter that out. I don't want it clogging in my results. But I've also actually seen, health check pings sometimes be a source of performance issues. And so sometimes it's actually nice to be able to see all those health check pings and how often they're coming, especially if they're processing any kind of ColdFusion content. So
yeah, and the other thing too is if your health check is failing or erroring, it's nice to be able to go into Fusion Reactor and see what's going on too. Because a lot of times the health check with Docker, the Docker instance shuts down, a new one spins up, and you're like, why did it shut down? You got to go figure it out, go try and find the logs. And so obviously if this disappears quickly, then it may not be helpful, but this allows you to at least watch them and keep an eye out. But it was interesting. So just a little blog there. And then Matt Giffis was talking about the CF Camp 2019. So if you didn't like Brad's summary and overview here, he's got a blog talking about his time there as well. So he gives pretty decent detail, walks through it. You know, it's always nice to see different people's opinions. I think as soon as Nolan gets off his jet lag, I'm sure he'll be posting a few more.
Nolan was on the same flight back to. I went through Houston on my way to Kansas City, and Nolan was on the same flight from Munich to Houston, but on his way to Sacramento. So cool. It's like he was just following me all the way home, all the way through border security and customs and security. I'd look up, and there's Nolan with his giant shrimp-shaped pillow that he has.
That's cool. Because, yeah, he did release one blog post, basically his CF Camp notes on the Lucy 5, 4, and 6 with Gert and Michael. So if you want to look there, he has some pretty good notes on that if you want a little more detail. So he goes through that, and that's where I got some of my notes for the Lucy piece previously. It's always nice, and like I said, I'm sure he has a lot more notes he'll be publishing as he gets time, and probably do a nice recap as well. That's one thing you can always count on with Nolan. Lots of great content after these conferences. Also, we had a blog post from Ben Adele. So he's continuing on with his Redis key scanner. And so he's been looking at ways to, using regex to filter the keys. So just a little app that he's building. It's kind of nice. But he's gone through and actually done some regex stuff just to narrow down the keys to move through the list, etc. So pretty cool.
Yeah, if you just used Catchbase, he'd just have a built-in nice little web UI that would let him view all the keys.
Yeah, I think he had one. He was having issues
using Redis, sucker.
Yeah, no, the Redis one I think has got a nice little UI as well. But he was looking at how the keys were just teaming up, and Ben always likes to play. He likes to experiment and pull things apart, and so he was looking at the JEDIS, Java library for it, and
look at Ben's code here using arrow functions.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, with this familiar with JavaScript, he probably writes those in his sleep. But it's nice to see ColdFusion code actually using that. It's cool.
Yep. So yeah, I've liked his little series on this Redis stuff, and so there's another one there to follow up on the previous articles we talked about last week too. We had another one from Fusion Reactor, so they're busy releasing some content. So Neil Wyman, I guess it is, he was talking about an interesting error where the runtime service was not available for ColdFusion 2018, and he got this weird error they hadn't seen in forever. But I guess in his app, he was using his sessions were pointing at Redis, but he was no longer running the Redis installation, so he'd removed it. And instead of just throwing an error, the whole entire engine could not load. So because ColdFusion was set up to look for Redis for storing sessions, the ColdFusion engine didn't load at all. So he had to go into his XML files.
Unfortunately, a little typical of Adobe ColdFusion is anything that goes south during startup will just completely crash the internal engine, and then you'll just get these really generic runtime services not available, and you're like, what does that mean? You have to kind of dig through the logs to find the root cause. That's a good blog though, because
I was thinking someone else is bound to run into something like that, so this gives you an idea of where to look, and so I just thought I'd throw it out there. I'm sure that you'll need this at some point. You will need this someday, sometime. Yep. And then another Fusion Reactor blog post. They were busy. So they're talking about how a lockdown server can actually make it so system metrics are unavailable. So there's actually a little button in there for the system metrics, and that's no longer visible when you're running against a lockdown ColdFusion server. So one of those things you might think is a bug or doing something weird, but yeah, it's just lockdown servers actually lock down some of that ability for Fusion Reactor to get in there and look at that information. So, all right, cool. And we had a tweet about something close to your hot command box. So, I mean, I'm sure you saw it too, but Paul Klinkerman or Frinky said that it was Klinkenberg. He said
I've never actually said his name out loud. I've only read it. That's weird. Sorry, go on.
Okay. He was just saying it was awesome how he saw a command box being used in like every CF Camp presentation. And he goes, it rocks. And, we might be biased, but we believe so too. So, yep. then, yeah, the cool thing was I think CF Summit had a pretty good coverage too. So we had a lot of good stuff going on there. So
there we go. Is our stream still live? I had it open in a window here, and it just showed as being ended. Is that just me?
it might have cut out, but we'll just keep recording, and we'll have to make everybody watch it later.
There you go.
Yep. So sorry for those watching live. We're gone. But so we had another tweet from Nolan. Yeah, so this is him talking about the friendly dog walking around, hanging out in the sessions. So he says it was pretty cool. A lot of people dog people, and so they had a lot of fun with that, as you mentioned. And he said as an added bonus, the Preside platform API head talk had lots of dog photos. So
yeah, I actually worked some dog examples into my design patterns talk just because I've seen all these tweets and everybody was using dog memes and dog examples. So I felt the pressure. I had to conform.
Yep. I know. So much the old days where cats were everywhere, now it's dogs. What are we coming to? Well, Benidell also talked about some remote work. So as a non-coding one, he was actually asked to speak at a talk at Kurtosis. I'm not sure what that is. But he basically talked about the journey of Envision. And so one of the things he talked about was remote work increases intimacy and amplifies a shared sense of humanity. So a lot of people, talk about remote work being the opposite, where basically you lose people and you don't, you get lonely. And that's why a lot of people use co-working spaces and stuff to try and combat it. And, Ortus obviously is a remote company. Almost everybody works remotely. The only ones that don't, I think, is the El Salvadorian offices. A group of them work together in the office there. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting. He talked about how when you do video chat and everything, that you're actually like in that person's office. You're sort of like in their space, in their home. That they've got to customize it, so actually get some intimacy. And when you're talking to people one-on-one, like you're not just having a big meeting, it's very one-on-one, so you actually get to know people better. And he said it's kind of different. And also talking about things like Slack, how it can be a repository of like little wins and bonuses and stuff like that. So a lot of things that are lost in the water cooler or just random stuff kind of show up and get stuck basically in your Slack channel. So it's got a little history, and you can all sort of share in those little wins together, where sometimes you'd be left out. So,
provided you pay for your Slack team, you don't lose messages past 10,000.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was just just a different side of things and whatever, and it just sort of talks about some of the benefits of remote work that maybe sometimes aren't seen. So it was kind of interesting. So a nice little blog post there.
That's cool. Yeah.
And then we had Matt Gifford's blog post about breaking out a script into tags and back again. So that was the feature you talked about with the markdown.
Yeah, I mentioned
blocks.
it earlier. Misha actually said that it works like in levels deep. You can have a script block and then put a tag block inside of it, and put a script block inside of that, and put a tag block inside of that, and so on and so on and so on. And the Lucy parser will handle all that correctly.
Wow.
Misha said that he tried it after he read the feature just to see if it actually worked, many levels deep, and it totally worked. So
I'm wondering if someone's going to figure out how many levels it works too.
Eventually, there's going to be a Stack Overflow in there somewhere, but it's pretty cool though.
Cool. So yeah, so he just ran through it. Has a couple of nice examples, so maybe you can see it visually if you're not visually seeing those backticks that we talked about. So yep. And then we obviously had your tweet, which is probably one of my favorites from CF Camp, about the DistrictKid sign. So
and I've heard of DistrictKid for a while. They're a big kind of distributor of music, and they used to run on Rilo back in the day, and then after the Lucy fork, they'd converted over to Lucy. But I know they're really a massive site. They're probably one of the largest sites running on Lucy, other than I don't know, there's probably a lot of Lucy sites I don't know about, but out of the ones I've heard about, other than maybe like that NASA Mars rover site, this is probably one of the biggest ones that I know of, just off the top of my head. But I didn't show it in the picture on the tweet, but down at the bottom it has a bunch of names of Mark Drew, Gert Franz, Misha Offner. They're all working directly with DistroKid, so they got a lot of a big name CF people. And that they didn't really have a booth per se, but they did have like this giant banner up. So that's pretty cool, just knowing that DistroKid is a really large, successful website out there on the internet, and it's totally running off Lucy.
Yeah, the largest distributor of music in the world runs on top of Lucy server, and that's what the picture read.
One of the keynote slides talked about some of the. Well, sorry, so I think DistroKid is becoming a Lucy member if they're not already. And one of the keynote slides talked about, if I'm recalling this correctly, somebody can correct me otherwise if I misremembered it, that DistroKid was going to be supplying, I think, like a dedicated Java developer or development resource
Wow.
to help move things along with Lucy. There was a couple member companies that were going to try to step up and help kind of contribute some development resources, which is kind of cool.
That's very cool.
Plus for DistroKid. Yeah, one of the other companies was 1024. I don't know if they're a Lucy member off the top of my head, but they were allegedly going to be taking over the Hibernate extension to try to help keep that moving forward. So I love seeing these, these companies that have a lot going for them that use Lucy, kind of stepping up and contributing sort of, hard development hours to improve the parts of Lucy that they care about. And a lot of the Lucy 6 features actually, on that note, were sponsored features, things that clients basically paid for that, worked their way into mainstream Lucy. So that's actually, a really good model, I think.
Cool. Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, if you go to opencollective.com/Lucy, you can see a lot of the contributors. You'll see a list of the individuals, the companies, and you can actually contribute right there. It gives you the breakdown of different packages, and it shows sort of some of the numbers too. Like it's really is open. It shows who's paid how much for what, and it's kind of surprising but interesting at the same time. That way it's open source and it's open financial. So it talks about how much money they've brought in so far for the year, and how much more they're hoping to get to pay the way. So they've got donations for one times. They've got individual supporters for starting at $10 a month, $100 a month. So we've got all the different plans all the way up to a last member, which is $5.99 a month. And then you get actually votes, I believe, right, Brad? Is that how it works? If you're a last member, you can vote on certain things and really contribute.
Yeah, so last membership gives you additional benefits on top of just being a supporter. So you can, give any amount of money, $10 to $200, a month to Lucy to last. That money goes to help support the development. But if you're a Lucy member, which is a specific level of donation, it's like $5.99 a month, then you can actually be on the board and you get a vote in the actual direction of Lucy as an organization. So they're definitely doing a big push for more member companies. Because like Alex said in the Lucy keynote, really the one of the just absolute biggest limiting factors for Lucy right now is just pure lack of funds. They have a backlog bigger than you can imagine, and they just don't have funding to be able to push the developers into it right now. So, if you got a company and you're making money and you're using Lucy for free, and your app makes you a lot of money, just consider putting some of that back into Lucy server, because that's really kind of the biggest thing they need right now to be able to push forward with fixes and new features.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, think about it. I mean, the amount of money that you could be spending on Adobe licenses. I mean, every little bit counts, right? So throwing something at Lucy's gonna, help one way or the other. So, I mean, in the end, there's a few developers working on it, and we're just trying to cover their wages, and but there is a pretty big backlog built up right now. A lot of the things are little things, but some of those things are life-changing, breaking changes for other people. So. I know that you said with command box is something you need before you can get the command box running on the latest version of Lucy. So, our best and brightest tools are running on it. So, okay, well, enough about that. Let's talk about some CFML jobs. So, we had a ColdFusion developer at Senior Market Sales in Omaha, Nebraska. So they're looking for a ColdFusion developer for. Basically they're looking for a strong developer to join their strong team. So that's full time, and that's available on the getcfmljobs.com site. And then there's a ColdFusion developer that was listed for tech partners in Boynton Beach. Some of these names in Florida confuse me. It must be the foreigner side of me, but in Boca Raton, Florida. So looking for a responsible responsible developer to be responsible for the full-time software development lifecycle, including meeting with users, requirements, designing systems, coding, source control, creating, executing test plans, deployment, quality assurance. So, the full lifecycle developer there. And so if you're interested in that, that's on getcfmljobs.com as well.
Cool.
So, and there's always more listed on the site, getcfmljobs.com, and it does compile lots of different sites into just ColdFusion related ones. So if you guys are looking for a job, that's definitely a great place to go. And I saw a little typo on that, and I put a message out to the owner of that site, and he fixed it within a day. So it's, he's nice and responsive. It's a ColdFusion built site, trying to help developers. So so very cool.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's get on to the ForgeBox module of the week. So this is one that we've talked about lots of times, but haven't actually spotlighted. So we've mentioned Quick before, but this time we're going to talk about QB, which is Query Builder. And Query Builder is a fluent query builder for ColdFusion. It's heavily inspired by Eloquent from Laravel. So that's a pretty cool tool. I mean, have you used it much yet, Brad, or you're sticking to your old school SQL?
QB, I've used it, but I've just been recently that I really dug much into it. I've been familiar with it for a while. I started using it recently on some client stuff, and our ColdBox here at a superhero training actually used QB for all the database stuff, which is kind of cool. So it's got a lot of nice things in there. There's definitely a point if you use a lot of the, I've noticed personally, if you use a lot of the native functions in your SQL, in your database engine, like with SQL Server, I tend to use a lot of aggregate functions, and just like dedicated SQL functions for extracting like year and month out of date time values, and things of that nature. You'll hit a limit of what QB can do for you, and you can still make it work. You have to, say like, here's a raw chunk. So I've definitely found some limitations, but for just really basic stuff, it's really nice and readable, and it reads a lot better in script than trying to do a CF query in script. So it's definitely fun to play around with.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the big plus for it is it abstracts away those differences between the database engines, so you can more easily switch. And for our our workshops, it's great because we usually run everything in MySQL because it's free and we can easily get it. But then if everything's written in QB and we go give the person, say, okay, here's the code, you guys can go home and run this on your MS SQL server now, it should all work. When we first did it, we did, query execute for a lot of the stuff, and then we'd had all sorts of problems, getting people to run it at home on MS SQL. So the more we use Query Builder, the better it became. But I mean, the big thing I like about it is you can make really complex and out of order queries easier. I don't know how many times you've written a query and you've got like this little if statement up the top where it joins these tables if something is passed into your search. And then, then you got your where statements that you have to put this if around. And then you've got your order bys with this if around. And, so with Query Builder, you can just say, where from this, whatever, it can be in one if block, it can be out of order. And then when Query Builder builds the query, it puts it in the right order, it puts all the pieces together for you. So it's pretty neat. Just box install QB to get running. There's an Ortus book for it. So qb.ortusbooks.com. It's pretty neat. Go check out some of the examples and everything. And it's just like Hyper is for CF HTTP, so you can just write your query nice and simply, and it's got that real nice simple function DSL where everything's pretty smooth. So it's pretty cool. And then I know that Eric is working on a big release. He's done a ton of work. We were up till 2:00 most nights at CF Summit. He was cracking away on QB, knocking all the tickets out. So I think he's gearing up for, I think version 7 should be released pretty soon here. So nice. So
yeah. And you mentioned Quick earlier. In case it wasn't clear, QB is basically what powers Quick. So the Quick ORM is kind of made possible by QB, which both does, your select, update, delete kind of insert statements, as well as your create table, drop table, add column kind of statements as well. So,
yep,
the schema.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. But so definitely check it out. And if you want to just have a quick overview of what it is and you can't find anything on Quick, if you look up Eloquent from Laravel, I'm sure on Laracast they have a few videos on Eloquent, and basically it's the ColdFusion version of that. So
we were debating at CF Camp how you're supposed to pronounce Laravel. is it like Laravel or Laravel? I don't even know what's supposed to be the right way.
Yeah, Laravel, not a big deal. I mean, depends.
Potato,
I mean,
potato.
a lot of the people from Laravel seem to be from Canada. I listened to a couple of podcasts
Oh, really?
from there, and they say like JavaScript. Like even I think it sounds weird.
My
Yeah,
gosh. See,
Java,
now I'm
JavaScript, not JavaScript.
I'm self-conscious every time I say Laravel now because I'm like, gosh, am I saying it right or wrong? I don't know.
Yeah.
So stressful.
Well, if you ask a ColdFusion developer, it's a PHP framework, so you shouldn't talk about it. But
yeah, they were definitely throwing shade at PHP at the Codemasters at CF Camp.
Yeah. I got to admit, though, Laravel's got a lot of cool tools, and Eric Peterson, he gets a lot of great ideas for a lot of his modules from Laracast. It's a great, just a great set of tools that they have with Laravel, and, quite a few tools that were built over here. Eric's basically, brought them over and built a ColdFusion version of it, and, they got some pretty smart people working on their stuff, and so, it would be wrong for us to just ignore everything PHP. Just, obviously we're not writing PHP, but we can learn lessons from other languages and frameworks. So we do. Okay, now we're going to talk about the JS code hints and tips of the week. So for this one, it's one that I've got, and I've used it a little bit, and it's just a really cool little tool for working with JSON. It's called JSON Transform. The cool thing about it is it's basically, it ties into the JMESPath library, which is a query language for JSON. So I hadn't really seen much of this, but what it allows you to do is basically have a JSON file open, and you can run the command to basically start this JSON transform, and then it has this little syntax for how to query it. So if you do like square brackets and do the number 1, you're basically going to get the first item in that JSON array. If you want the second item, you do number 2. If you want the first 2 items, you do :2. And if you just want one key out of it, you can just do .name after the square brackets, and it'll just give you back the name field. And there's all sorts of different ways you can transform it with this really simple little, little query language, basically. And if you go to JMESPath.org, they have a tutorial there on how to use it. But it's just a nice little way if you've got a chunk of code, like if you're working with APIs and you pull something down, you're like, wait a minute, something's not right here, something's messing up. You can just basically pop open this little transformer and say, hey, just show me all the usernames in this list. I want the first 10. And then it will pull up just that key. And it's kind of neat. And if you've got a huge old JSON file, it can make it much easier for filtering it through. So I think it's pretty cool. Have you seen that one before?
No, I haven't seen that one. So I'm just trying to figure out the syntax of all the things you can type.
Yeah, like you said, I was just thinking for simple stuff like just getting a particular key out of something, or if you wanted to, just get the first row or the second row. But yeah, there's a lot of different stuff, and like I say, you can slice it. You can say, hey, I want between the 5th and the 10th rows, so it can pull them back. But it's pretty neat.
So the sort of range syntax it shows, where like if you have an array of structs, or an array of objects, if you will, and you type, inside of square brackets, :2, and it gives you the first and second, it looks like.
Yep.
I'm curious, is that something that a common language actually supports, or is that just something that this tool created of their own?
Well, that's the thing. I think it's based on this JMESPath, which basically that query language. I don't know where it came from, or never heard of it before, but there's a specification for it. So they have the specification document. It's got all sorts of stuff in it. So
path tutorial.
Yep, they have built-in functions like absolute values and averages and contains and all sorts of stuff.
Query language for JSON. It kind of reminds me of like XML search for XML, but for JSON. I don't know if it's quite as robust as XML search, because the whole reason I'm asking is it's like, okay, yeah, this is a cool VS Code extension. I'm kind of wondering, like, should I have the ability to do stuff like this in CFML, just like in general when working with JSON documents? So of course in ColdFusion it's more probably just structs and arrays, but I'm curious if there would be a use case to have this kind of support in CFML just in general.
Yeah, the grammar is specified using ABNF as described by IRC 4234. I'm trying to see what's underneath it, but Yeah, it's kind of interesting. There's got some libraries for it. So there's a Python one, a JavaScript one, Ruby, Java. So
there we go. I see a Java implementation of it. So
yeah, so I mean,
that means that it would be
and they're fully
pretty easy
compliant too. So I mean, we should be able to tie into it. But yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty cool. I mean, there's some nice little features in there, and obviously, you know, we work with JSON a lot of the time now. Might be something pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, even if you don't want to use the VS Code extension, that JMESPath.org has all the information about it. It's up on GitHub as well. So there's all the different, you know, sites there as well. So they've got Ruby and, you know, Python and all that. So, but yeah, pretty cool. And so I've actually had that one and used it a little bit, and then I didn't realize you could do half the things it did until I was looking through it, and I was like, that's definitely something we should talk about. So yeah, so that's my visual code hints, tip, and trick of the week. So try JSON Transform. It's only got about 13,000 installs right now, but 5 stars. So yeah, definitely go check that one out.
That brings us to a close.
Yep, we just got our Patreon supporters here.
And you said we wouldn't have much to cover today.
Oh, I know. Well, I knew if you got started talking about CF Camp and oranges and coffee and chocolate, you'd probably talk for a while.
Oh, so. They had the orange juice machine, my friend. In fact, Mishi told me that the only reason he had it was because I asked for it. So I had my share of glasses of freshly squeezed orange juice at CF Camp. So pretty good.
They love you. Well, you did do an extra session last minute, right? So
yeah. Well, and they didn't cram me in a sumo suit again, so I'm thankful for that. However, there were some slightly photoshopped pictures of me in a sumo suit as part of the intro to CF Camp and the opening remarks.
Too funny.
Once it happens and goes on the internet, man, it never disappears.
Yep, that's for sure. It's not Vegas, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
What happens in CF Camp comes back to haunt you every year.
Yep, exactly. So what you need to do is wear a skinny. Yeah, you need to wear a skinny sumo suit or something. Like I lost some weight. Too much orange juice.
Exists.
Yep. So thank you, Andrew Davis, Brian White, Kyle Von Stetten, Dali, Dan Codd, Daniel Garcia, David Ballinger, Didier Lesnicki, Don Bellamy, Eric Hoffman, Gary Knight, Jan Yannick, Jeremy Adams, John Farrar, Jordan Clark, Joseph Lamery, Laxma Tirahadi, Matthew Clemente, Richard Herbert, Samuel Knowlton, Scott Steinbeck, VJ, just VJ, and Yogesh Smether. And if you want to see more and know how you can become a sponsor, please go to ordersolutions.com/about-us/sponsors. And obviously, we have a lot of different packages, and we thank everybody, right? Our products wouldn't be the same without our supporters, and those of you who contribute with Patreon, we thank you, and those who contribute with pull requests and issues and everything as well, you guys all help out, right?
Yep. We're very thankful for the support you guys give us. All right, well, until next time.
Yep. Have a good one, everybody.
Stay cool, ColdFusion. Stay cool.
Bye. Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernize.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.